So first off, Mitch, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Definitely excited about being here.
Yeah,
This is quite the experience.
Thank you. So just start out, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of give us an intro of
Yeah.
who you are, what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Mitchell Griffith. I actually went to school with your brother, graduated same year in high school with him in 2008. So my background, I have kind of like a different background, or I've kind of like poked my hand in a couple different places. So right now I'm working at Target as a lead product owner. But before then, I had basically started my own company throughout college. So in college I was working on marketing, and then through that I started a gold buying business, and through the process of college I paid for most of my college with money my parents saved for me, and then money I made selling gold, buying jewelry and antiques and
That's
flipping
awesome.
it.
That's
So
awesome.
I did that for 3.5 years, like all throughout college, and then I went down the corporate route, and I took a variety of roles as like product owner, business intelligence analyst, learned some basic programming and some analytic skills. So I've kind of done a lot of different things, but I really enjoy what I do and kind of like the path I found to get to where I am today. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. Can you start just from the beginning? Like, what was?
Yeah.
Did you always kind of have entrepreneurial tendencies, and just like saw an opportunity with the gold, or how did
Yeah.
that go?
Definitely. So my mom is very entrepreneurial. I remember like when I was a little kid going to Goodwill with my mom.
Yeah.
She would literally be looking at jewelry to buy so she could go sell it. So we'd like case the jewelry cabinets at Goodwill trying to find like gold or like real jewelry. So
Yeah.
I just always saw that energy from my mom. And my mom also always took me to like business encounters or business meetings with like as she was a single mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was always with her. So I was always exposed to business and like buying things, and she basically taught me when I showed interest in early in college to basically how to buy jewelry, how to sell it, how to get a business license, and basically create an eBay account where I could buy and sell and flip things. So it was definitely from my mom, and that side of my family is very entrepreneurial.
Okay.
So that's kind of how it all started in college, I would say, for sure. In high school, I did some stuff, but I really started entrepreneurial ideas in college.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I do a lot of eBay stuff too right now. Especially
Awesome.
with like Jim's clothes and stuff. Like
Yeah.
I'm really I'm big on the
Yeah.
Amazon and eBay and stuff, so that's really cool.
Yeah, there's really, it's a good thing to do. I mean, if you can find the right niche and the right products, you can definitely make money.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So do you use some of those skills you learned, like buying and selling gold and that, like with your job and like career? Do those translate a little bit, or
Yeah.
what is that?
I think what's cool about like your career is a lot of things can translate. I'm not buying gold anymore.
Yeah.
But like part of having that company and that experience in college was really around how do you create vision for something? How do you make a plan? How do you achieve that plan? How do you set those goals? So even though I'm not doing that, I feel like that experience really helped me, because now in my job right now I'm helping set vision for a team. I'm helping achieve a plan that we plan. I'm helping kind of like sell these ideas like an entrepreneur out to other teams so they get excited about it. So even though it's not one for one, I think definitely just entrepreneurial mindset and like how do you do something can be really valuable in the corporate setting or as your own person, as your own like company.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So obviously we've got, since March, pandemic going on, everything with remote working and everything. What are some observations you've made, or like things that you've learned this year, whether it's in business or personal, and how have you adjusted to it?
Yeah, everything's kind of changed and it's kind of wild.
Yeah.
So that's
Sure.
definitely new. I would say I'd say like personal and business side, I think like routine is becoming really important for a lot of people. I think it's easy to kind of just like fall in and do nothing and like kind of write this year off, but I don't think that's very smart.
Yeah.
So I think on my side, the part that I've like recognized the importance of is routine. How do I make time in my day and like create like time outside of work so I can like work, but then also have some things to look forward to, even though we can't go to restaurants or we can't do all the fun stuff we used to do. I'm just trying to find like those couple things I can do each week and a little bit of routine to help kind of like round out that well-being.
Nice.
But it's challenging.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's struggling. I don't think it's like easy. I don't enjoy this
Yeah.
like lockdown. Obviously, I don't enjoy what's happening. But I'm lucky. I haven't been super impacted, and family's healthy, so there's nothing else I can ask for.
For sure. Yeah, that's what's most important.
Yeah, for sure.
So to shift a little bit, I mean, what would one thing be that people might be surprised to know about you? Like, do you have any weird interests or unique
Oh man.
hobbies or anything like that?
Yeah. I would say, I don't know if people would be surprised, but like deep down I'm really like nerdy and I love reading like fantasy novels.
Yeah.
So like Lord of the Rings, those types of books I love. like Dungeons and Dragons, like anything like that. I really love. I don't really talk about it with people, but that's like I'd say like something I just have always loved throughout my life is like reading fantasy novels and things like that. So that's kind of like one thing. The other thing is like throughout my life I have like experienced anxiety and like gone through like how to manage anxiety. So one thing that surprised people like that I work with is most people don't assume that like I've struggled with anxiety or I've felt anxiety, and I've kind of like gone through that growth process. So I'd say those are like two things that I don't really share with people, but like those two things are like an interest I have and something I've experienced that may not jump out.
Okay.
So
have you been reading more with being at home and stuff more? Have you gotten into any new books? Whether it's fantasy or personal development or some other topic?
So the two big routines that I've stood up since this pandemic, one is a lot of cycling. Okay. So with it getting really wintry, it's getting harder, but I did it almost like 2,300 miles this summer. Wow. So I kind of went off the cycling deep end, which was really good for me. And then the second thing I've just started doing recently is I'm actually playing Dungeons and Dragons with a small group of friends once a week. And that's fun because it's just like, you kind of, it's something you can do online and like still in the pandemic and everybody can join. So that's like one, I think like those two routines have like helped my mental well-being on like just staying active and like engaged.
Awesome.
So those are the two things that like jump out from like a routine perspective.
Yeah. And Dungeons and Dragons, I mean, you're saying you're with friends and stuff. I mean, since you can't meet in person, is that almost like an alternative? You get that interaction and then talk to friends and stuff like that's.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing about it is you're just kind of like hanging out with the same group of people every week, same time for 2 to 3 hours, and just like making jokes and laughing and having fun. So it's I think it's one of the really good like social interactions that can be reoccurring every week that has like a little bit of structure. But there's been like a lot of like research around like Dungeons and Dragons and like role playing and like any type of activity you can create with like reoccurring group of people every single week is really good for your mental health and your well-being as a person. It could be going to church. It could be playing like going to a book club. It could be playing Dungeons and Dragons, or like riding a bike with a group of 3 people. Right? It doesn't matter the things. It's just like try to find that reoccurring meeting with people is really good for sure. Yeah, and it's helping and it's fun. So I'm gonna keep doing it.
Yeah, for sure. It seems like it's like there's a little shift in the perspective. Usually like video games, like that's idiot box, like there's nothing positive you get from it, or at least parents' perspective. It really seems like there's a shift to like the positive sides of it, as well as other people making more money off of it and having actually a career path and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and there's a lot of people, like, I think one cool thing about the internet is you see all these people making all this, like, money from, like, ways you never thought would be possible. Yeah. Like, you have people with, like, vlogging about, like, baby wipes, you know? And, like, who would have ever imagined, like, there's just a lot of ways to do something and, like, add value. So, it's kind of cool.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's exciting.
So, you said 2,300 miles? Is that, like, all the way to California? Is that
I think that's a long way. I don't know how many. I wish I could go out to California. That'd be awesome. Going out to Cali.
Have you traveled a lot? I feel like you mentioned you went to Japan or something. Is that right?
Yeah. So as a consultant, I've worked at a couple different companies. I spent almost 3 years as a consultant working at a software company.
Okay.
So basically, what I did is companies would buy software and they need someone teach them how to train them on it.
Okay.
So I was the coaching and training consultant that after someone bought something, they'd send me out for a week or a couple months to basically teach them. So in that role, it was really cool. I was traveling 150-ish days per year.
Okay.
And I was going all across America. I went to Belgium, Thailand, and Japan. I spent 3 months in Japan. So that was like my experience of like traveling the world and kind of like working with a lot of different people and like really doing some different stuff. So that was a ton of fun. That was a really busy 3 years of my life. But yeah, that was really interesting. I'm glad I did that.
Yeah, I didn't know that you traveled so much. Do you have a favorite place? I mean, obviously you're there more for work. Was there some of the side things you did that you were really surprised that you enjoyed or anything like that?
Yeah, so my biggest thing is like some people when they travel, they would literally, because it's business, you get tired of it, right? It's like the same thing. They would just like sit in their hotel and go out, but like sit in their hotel and just eat hotel food and just like go back home.
Yeah.
What I made a habit of doing throughout the entire time is I would go explore the cities, I would go like to restaurants, which would make my days like completely packed.
Yeah.
But like if I was given the opportunity to go to like Atlanta, I'd look on Yelp and find the best restaurant and then go eat there. So I just treat it
Fair
as like
enough.
free vacation time, and it's a lot of work and it's a lot of like it's not all glamour, but it was fun just to like go to so many different cities and see so many different people, and do that for a couple of years. I don't want to do that for my entire life.
Yeah.
But it was fun for a couple times. So.
Yeah, for sure. Did you have some really good sushi in Japan or anything like
Oh
that?
yeah. The sushi's awesome. Ramen. My favorite thing was I don't know the name of it, but there's like this like Chinese like pepper, and
Chinese pepper. Okay.
instead of being hot, it numbs your mouth. So it's like you have a shot of Novocaine in your mouth.
Wow.
And it was basically I couldn't eat the highest level. I would eat the medium level because I would die. But it was like this like noodle dish with these really yolky like delicious noodles and this really like numbing spicy hot sauce
Okay.
like soup. Like so it was
Okay.
like ramen, but it was like Chinese ramen. I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
what it was, but it was super good because you could eat it and it would your mouth would get hot, but then it would get numb, so then you don't feel it.
So then you can keep going.
Yeah, then you just like keep going and you're like, okay, keep going, and then you stop and your mouth would be numb. But that was my favorite dish. I had it like once a week minimum. That was the best food I had there for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Could you still taste it after a while? Is there enough to? Or is
Yeah.
it too numb to taste it, or is
You can
this-
kind of taste it.
Yeah.
Well, it lingers like at least
Yeah.
an hour. Like it lingers. And I've actually found a couple places in Minneapolis that serve it,
Yeah?
but it's nowhere near as good. So
Huh.
it's like, yeah.
Yeah, because when I was in Germany, they had these things called like a doner, like a
Oh,
kebab,
Yeah.
like the spinning meat. It's kind of like you see Greek.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
see it,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it was like more like Turkish, like over there.
Nice.
At least where I was in Germany.
Yeah.
And like here, I look it up and I can't find one place that has like
Really?
the same kind of, the same way to do it.
And that was the best thing in Germany? Like the most delicious, or?
Not the most delicious, but like up there. But like
Really?
the most accessible. Like it's like you get it for like €4 at like any
Yeah.
corner place. Like it's everywhere,
Yeah.
and it's delicious. So it's like you had a lot because it was just convenient
Exactly.
and inexpensive.
Yeah.
But I can't find it here.
I think that's like the best food from culture or countries is like the stuff that you can eat every day for super cheap. That is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, because that's like their tried and true. Like that's their
Yeah.
main thing.
Exactly, yeah. I like that. That's one of my favorite things about traveling is like just eating the normal food and like eating the stuff you can eat every day and then
Yeah.
like liking it, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's fun.
For sure, and like it was cool because like I would go to like the same one because
Yeah.
it was close to where I lived. And,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
they,
yeah.
they knew me, I knew them, and like we
They
didn't
just
speak.
get you what you want.
Yeah, we didn't speak. Neither of us spoke very good German, but we knew we were like both, not from there, so it was kind of like a connection.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
The American guy.
Yeah.
So
It's
they
like
hooked me up.
finally someone with bad German.
Yeah, that I can relate to exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So, anyways, pivoting a little bit.
Yeah.
AJ was telling me that you're interested in real estate, maybe kind of taking steps in that direction.
Yeah.
What do you have any goals with that? I mean, obviously you own a house in Minneapolis and that.
Yep.
What are you thinking about? What are your plans? And then obviously the market is really good for real estate. So how are you
Yeah.
approaching it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, I've been like over the last couple years like trying to figure out where I want to like move next as like an entrepreneur. And like one thing I've noticed is like you can spend like your entire life in a career and like work for a company or a couple companies and accept like a salary. But I don't like my long-term vision of my life is like I want to do things I love. So like if I continue to still love working in corporate America in 10
Yeah.
years, 15 years, I'm going to keep doing that. But maybe I also want the freedom to do things other things, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe I want the financial freedom or means to not have to worry about like money coming in every month, right? I think that's like a very real human thing to care about. So one thing I'd love to do, and I've been looking over the last year, is looking at buying like a house and starting my real estate journey from a duplex that I could buy in the Twin Cities area. But what I've been doing is like I basically set up like two things. So I have a like financial vision of like the goals in my life over the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I have like what I've built is like a way to evaluate like real estate opportunities. And what I've been doing over the last year is I've probably toured like 20 to 30 like duplexes, and I've
Okay.
gotten really close on one, but I'm not quite finding exactly what I want
Yeah.
at the price I want at this
Yeah.
time because things are getting really expensive. But like I'm going through that process just to figure out, do I want to invest in real estate? If not, what else do I invest in? But basically, I've just been reading a lot, learning a lot, and looking at a lot of properties with the intent of finding a great first opportunity and like seeing if that's a really good fit for me or not.
Okay. So nice.
So-
You're not forcing anything. You're
No.
just waiting for the right place. Is that kind of what it is?
Yeah, for sure, because it's basically a math equation, right? I mean, there's a lot of knowledge on a lot of things I don't know, like, that you have to learn the hard way, but at the end of the day, if you look at a property, the taxes, how much you'll pay in interest, likely what the rent is, you'll probably have an idea of maintenance costs. It's just a math equation. And if you just like buy something without going through the numbers, you might make a little money, but you won't like find like a really solid, good opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And then like when you think about it, there was like some statistic I read a long time ago, and it was like the people that make money in real estate are like the top 5 to 10%, not by like net worth, but of the houses that are for sale, only a few percentage of them are actually really good investments. So you have to say no to 80% to find like the pocket of really good opportunity. So I'm just trying to learn how to do that myself without like jumping on the first thing I see.
Yeah.
But I've seen like this year, I think I've seen around 12 duplexes I've gone to look in around the Minneapolis area. But I'm waiting for like prices to go down because it's just like insane how much houses are going up in value.
Yeah. I mean, AJ's trying to buy some acres, as you know, and he's just can't find anything in a good price range. So
it's crazy. It's like with this COVID, I mean, real estate prices are skyrocketing.
Yeah.
It's insane. But yeah, I think eventually there will be always a correction. So I think there's not trying to time it, but just trying to wait till the numbers make sense for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So with that being said, with the real estate market how it is, and obviously I'm no expert, but just with everyone working remote, is there going to be a shift? Like, what is your feeling? A shift in the real estate market where maybe people don't need to move to Minneapolis because they're working remote? Maybe they're more far out. Is that a trend you might see, or what do you think?
I have no idea how to project that, but I think that's real.
Yeah.
I can't tell the future for sure. But I mean, even if you look at like city of Minneapolis's budget, they had to cut it by like 35% or some big number just because all the people aren't coming in and everything that's happening, right? So it's like
that's a big number, 35%.
Yeah, it was like 20 to 35%. I mean, if you think about all the people moving in a city and spending sales tax every single day, buying lunches, daycare for kids, think of how expensive that is. There's just so many like tax revenue, like the Vikings playing games. Like think of all the sales tax that happens because the Vikings have awesome games every other Sunday.
Yeah.
Right.
All the stores around the stadium afterwards.
All the
tailgating.
Exactly. Yeah. So they've had to make some cuts, but I think long term there will likely be a change. I don't know what's going to happen though. I think as a real estate investor though, I think it's about how do you buy something at the right price where you can accept downs and ups. So that's how I'm seeing it. I'd like to buy a Minneapolis area, but I'm also looking in the entire metro area and also way up north in Minnesota. I'm looking for properties as well. So I'll trying to figure it out, trying to stay open, but I think the cities will likely not have as many people.
Yeah? Huh.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting.
But there'll still be a draw. Like once this all goes back to normal, people will still want to go see Vikings games in person.
Yes. Yeah,
right? Like that's not going away.
For sure.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That'll be something definitely interesting to see as things go on. So you said you have like how you evaluate real estate. Do you kind of have like you have numbers in your head like this needs to look like this, or how do you look at the number side? Yeah,
there's a lot of like resources online that are about how do you evaluate real estate, right?
Yeah.
What I've done is I've built like a Google spreadsheet that I use, and basically you put in the cost of the home, you put in the like all the costs you could expect, and then you come up with an idea of how much return could you make, right?
Yeah.
So like the very basic, like super basic, like very like napkin math, there's something called the 1% rule, which means, and you can go on biggerpockets.com and find like a lot of good resources. I'm not an expert in this, but the very high level barometer that some people use as a starting point is if you can buy a home for $300,000 and if you can rent it per month for 1% of that value, it could be a good deal. So that's one of the general rules I use, but I also use how much money I'd make per door, how much money I'd make relative to the purchase price of the home. And what I'm finding is, a $300,000 house in Minneapolis, first of all, you can't really get duplexes at $300,000, you can get some, but a $300,000 single family home would likely rent for like $1,800.
Okay.
So if then you're paying property taxes and the cost of the mortgage, you might be cash flowing like $100 a month.
Yeah.
So that's just like way too slim.
Not a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's healthier to be in like the $300 to $400 or $200 per door per profit range because you own the home for 30 years. So I think prices are just very high in general. Yeah. So, but I'm sure there's people making good deals and people buying and making money. So.
For sure.
Yeah.
Are you into stocks at all? Is that part of your portfolio per se, or what do you?
Yeah. My stocks are really boring though.
Yeah.
I just buy index funds.
Okay.
And invest in like of my stock portfolio, 80% is index.
Okay.
So that's just like S&P 500, a basket of the 500 biggest companies in America.
Yep.
Or trade on our stock market, and then I invest in like Apple and Costco as the two other companies I buy.
Okay.
So it's very boring. It's not very exciting, but I don't think investing has to be exciting.
Yeah.
I think it's like
sure.
a long-term game. So.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit. You were thinking about getting into YouTube, or maybe doing. You were
Yeah.
consulting or something. What are your ideas with that? Or do you
Yeah.
talk about that?
I think like one thing, like I'm thinking about like one thing I don't get to do in my job that I think is really important is like teaching people like about finance.
Okay.
Teaching people how to use money, or teaching people like how to budget. I think like what's amazing is like you know, you could spend $80,000 on a college education in America,
Yeah.
and you leave it without understanding like how budgets work, without like personal finance. How do you, if you can qualify for a $500,000 loan, what does it mean if you take that versus like having a house for $200,000, right? It's like I feel like our education system, or like the way we've all been brought up, is like money is this taboo where we can't talk about it, and our parents don't really teach us how to handle it effectively. So I'd love to just kind of like share knowledge, or like coach, or like help people with like how do you handle money, or how do you kind of like create good habits, or like just help people with that, because I think that's a huge gap
For
that
sure.
we've all experienced in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. There definitely isn't a surplus of people with sound financial advice. I mean, there's more people that need that advice than there are people available. They're willing to give that advice.
Yeah.
But
That's a very good point.
yeah, that's sweet.
And some of it's pretty questionable advice.
Yeah, but that too.
Yeah.
For sure, other motives or.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but interesting. So.
So to be determined. We'll see where that goes. But I'd really like to do something like that.
Okay. So it'd more just be advice, from your experience, your career, your endeavors.
Yeah.
Just kind of sharing that.
Sharing the tools too. Like
Awesome.
how do I like manage my budget? How do I keep track of my money? How do I like have a 20-year plan on big financial milestones I can accomplish? And why would I ever care about that? It's kind of like, how to do that. Why would we care? Like how do we like do those things?
Yeah.
And what does it mean for you? Like right? Like what dreams or visions do you have for your life? And how can you use money as one of the tools to get there?
For sure.
So.
I think when we met, a couple years ago, did you talk about it in college? You were like in a club or something where you kind of did that with younger high schoolers or something? Did I have that right?
Yeah, for sure. When I was in college, while I was running my business, I was like leading an entrepreneurship club for they're mostly high school and middle school kids in the city of St. Paul.
Okay.
And basically, each year we worked on a business plan together where the kids would do all the work. They'd go find a popcorn vendor where they can buy popcorn from them, they'd bag it themselves, and they'd take it to a fair and sell it.
Okay.
And they'd pool all the money together, and then they'd distribute the profits to themselves, right? So it was like, we'd build this business plan, we do the accounting with them, and they'd like understand, like, oh, this is how a business functions. And that was a lot of fun. Because you were kind of like just like teaching people how to do things, and like helping them kind of like do the work, or like helping them like see how money and like running a business and what that means and how to be an entrepreneur. That was really fun. So I did that for a couple of years in college, and I kind of miss like that type of coaching. You're like helping people that way, right?
Yeah.
Because like in a job in corporate America, you can't really like be like, hey, how much money are you spending? do you want to learn about how to save money? Like that's just not what happens.
Yeah.
It's just like this unsaid subject that no one talks about.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That just sounds similar to kind of what you're envisioning on your potential YouTube or podcast or whatever you choose to do.
Yeah, for sure. It'd be fun. I'm looking forward to this talk right here. It's giving me some practice and and learning about audio.
Yeah.
And how this all works.
For sure. So, shifting a little bit, obviously you've had, a long career and been pretty successful career-wise in corporate America. What is your biggest failure? What do you think you've learned from it, and how has it helped you?
Oh man, I think there's been quite a few failures.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. I think so. There's like this kind of like this adage, or like this like new quote that's like making its way around like corporate America, which is called "fail fast." You know.
Okay.
And there's like definitely truth to that. Like you need to learn from failure, but also I think, failure can be intense, and it can be really hard, and it can be really challenging. trying to think of like my biggest failure. I think what my failures like have in common is like, so for me as a person, like I'm very much like, I think of the future vision. I care about like how to do things differently. I love to like solve difficult problems. But I think by doing that, I think you're not always able to accomplish all that in like a short time period.
Yeah.
So the way I've kind of like started to shift is like I used to put a lot of pressure on myself just to like, okay, you're gonna have 1 year on this project, like you gotta do it the best and like finish everything and kind of force it at the end as it gets closer and closer.
Yeah.
And what I'm kind of learning is it's more of like, how do you bring a team along? How do you kind of like do the groundwork, but also like get people to care about the work and really make sure that that work is used and that work really connects to people and that work really makes a difference. So focusing more on like, instead of like these arbitrary boundaries you give yourself, more of like, how can I make something really impactful and really helpful and make it really great over time, and like celebrating those little wins along the way. But basically I think the mistakes I've made throughout my career have been around like pushing change when other people don't want it. It's been around like really not quite listening as well as I should be listening to people, or kind of like marching on a direction without asking questions and just keep marching, you know? So I think those are like the common attributes my failures would have, but I'd say I've definitely learned from them. I'll keep learning from them, and I'll keep making mistakes, right?
Yeah.
So I don't try to see it like fatalistic, like, oh, my biggest mistake, I can't ever recover from it. It's more of like, point your arrow in the right direction, accept the failures that come, but like do your best to learn from them.
Yeah.
And know you'll make more mistakes in the future too.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it seems like a lot of your, like through your failures, maybe you've gotten better with, people and how to work with them in the best way.
Yeah.
Does that seem accurate?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm still learning and still getting better, and I think everyone is too. Like, there's no one that has all this stuff figured out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, I definitely think I'm getting better, and I think like I'm excited about like continuing to learn and grow and getting better. So
it's awesome.
Yeah.
Something like that relates to a little bit, like how important do you think, culture and leadership and just the interactions with your team and people in the company, how important are they, like, especially culture and leadership, how important are those to business success?
Yeah. I think what's like really true is you can't do it alone, and I think it's really important to find like good leaders that you look up to and people that like exhibit like good behaviors and like good integrity, right? I think it really makes a big difference like when you're able to give support and receive support. So one thing I love about my team right now is like I've really seen my team grow and like grow their voice, and kind of like they're starting to guide the ship and lead the ship, and I've kind of seen like the team grow from the starting point to up here, and it's really cool to see like how if you can just keep working with the team and keep growing, like everybody kind of gets better, everybody takes more ownership, everybody gets a larger voice and like a better seat at the table.
Yeah.
So I think like the way I see leadership isn't like I'm a leader, I'm not a leader. I see it as like my role is to help my team be leaders of their work, and my role is to help them do what they love and drive good impact.
Okay.
Doesn't mean I'm a leader or not a leader, or they're leaders and not leaders. It's just how do we do that as a team?
It's like almost everyone's a leader within their own role.
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
What you're saying?
Yeah, because leadership isn't just leading people. It's leading ideas. It's making ideas come to life. It's standing up for your work. It's doing a lot of that stuff. It's not just like and it's a team thing too. It's not like one person's the leader and the other people aren't.
Yeah,
right?
For sure. That's really interesting. A lot of people I don't think get that. They're like, oh, if I'm not a manager, maybe I'm not a leader or not. I don't need to exhibit, certain characteristics or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's like a dangerous trap.
Yeah.
Because I think like at the end of the day, like what I've learned is like you can do a lot of great work, but if your team can do great work, they're gonna be able to exceed what you can do. Like the bottleneck, if it's one person, like you want the pyramid to be flipped. Like you don't want to be at the top of the pyramid and like a bottleneck for everything. You want to like flip the pyramid around so everyone on the bottom is like going up. Yeah. A little bit. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really interesting. So I had a specific question I wanted to ask you. Yeah. That I think you're maybe a master interviewer. I don't know. Really, you've had a lot of interviews and have interviewed a lot of other people, and with everything going on, a lot of people are graduating college or they just graduated college and they're trying to get a job, but the economy is has challenges and stuff. So, through all of your interviews and maybe what you've seen,
Yeah.
What would you recommend to recent college graduates or people who are about to graduate college as they, interview or enter the workforce in a non-ideal economy and just with everything going on? What would you recommend to those people?
Yeah, that's super difficult.
Students, if you have anything.
Yeah. I understand like the state of the world and like the unemployment rate, like that's a big challenge. So I'm sure there's a lot of rejection, and I'm sure it's like a difficult time because, if a lot of people are out of work, you're going to be competing with a lot of people without work. I think what I get back to, what I think is really important, is I think you really have to just like know what you want or know what gives you energy. Mm-hmm. So if you can go in an interview and say like, this is who I am, or this is who I think I am, this is what I'm not, and if you can land those two things really well, you'll end up in a spot that's really good for you. So to give you like an example, like in my job right now, I'm starting to look at other teams. I'm starting to understand like where may I go over the next year and how can I plan that like with my manager, right?
Yeah.
So through like those conversations, there's a lot of like interesting people I've met and great teams, but I kind of explained who I am, what I like doing, and what I don't. And through those conversations, I realized some of the teams that I thought or some of the areas aren't good fits for me. Mm. So I think an interview process is really important. Like, as an interviewee, you shouldn't necessarily be interviewing them, but you should be able to say, these are the things that I'm good at, this isn't and these are the things I don't really want to do. And these are the things I'm less good at that I'm going to work on. So it's like, you should be able to be transparent and show what you are, because the people that really value the things you're good at are going to want to hire you. And they're gonna, and when you get the job, you're gonna be somewhere where you're valued, where what you're good at are what you're doing. There's a lot of jobs that I'd be terrible at, and it's my job to make sure I don't get those jobs by being honest about like who I am and what I like to do. Does that make sense?
Yes, for sure.
So it's like, accept the failures. You're gonna get rejected. Make sure to explain who you are, what you're not, and do your best. And I think there's gonna be like. And you'll find somewhere good, and then the important thing is once you find somewhere good, it's like a good spot for you. That's the most important.
Yeah, awesome. Really good insight. Is that kind of been your framework a little bit for your years?
I kind of ended up there. I started just like talking about how excited I was about like data and analytics, and like I'm like, I really want to do this stuff. Please hire me. And then I guess I've had more experiences where I've learned certain values of things I wouldn't budge on, or like certain qualities I look for in leaders, or certain like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Because it's like after you have some really good bosses and after you have some not so good bosses, you try to sort out how can you get more of the really good bosses or the really good teams or the really good areas, right? And less of the stuff that's not a good fit for you.
For sure.
Yeah.
So what, is there any differences? Well, I mean, obviously there's less people meeting face-to-face for interviews. Is there anything specific just that's really for 2020 compared to last year or years prior, that someone could do just because of, the nature of how interviews are going now?
Yeah.
Like something specific to to how things are now? Anything like that?
I haven't thought about that. So I've interviewed a couple times, or one time over the last 6 months. The only thing that I feel is different is, I think what's different is they're shorter, it feels like. So before this would happen, the interviews I'd be involved in are like anywhere from like 4 hours to 8 hours on like one day. So like half a day to full day. And I think what's happening is the length of interviews is decreasing. Mm-hmm. So like the interview time slots are getting shorter. I don't know why. I think the other thing that jumps out is, I think in this world what's really important during your interview is, like when you think about it, during a standard interview, being professional means clipping your nails, getting a haircut, all that stuff, right? Like having a suit, wearing a tie, whatever it is, looking quote-unquote presentable. I think now it's still important to look presentable, but now it's like making sure your lighting's good, making sure you don't have like a bunch of stuff behind you that's distracting, but like how do you make sure that video experience you're giving just shows you and is like clear without being like confusing. So I'm sure there's different skill sets. Haven't really thought about it though.
Yeah.
But it feels harder to interview online though. I don't think I don't enjoy it as much.
Yeah, it seems like you might miss like a few things, just like the physical aspect of seeing a person.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I guess I haven't experienced that as much, but just something I observe or
yeah. It's definitely different for sure.
yeah. So here's one from AJ. It's pretty short.
All right.
What drives you?
Oh man, what drives me? I think doing things I really like and getting better and learning. Like those three things probably drive me. I like learning a lot, like new skills, new things, new ideas, growing for sure. Then I like doing what I like. You know,
Fair
that's
enough.
pretty basic.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like definitely solving problems and like learning and like continuing to get better and yeah, those things definitely drive me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So with with everything going on and just we touched on it earlier, with like mental health and everything and anxiety. I mean,
Yeah.
you've said you've had some experience with anxiety, and I know a lot of other people are. I mean, I've seen like the depression rates are up, quite a bit just with all the uncertainty and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is there anything? I mean, you touched on it a little bit earlier, but is there anything you feel like some people could? I mean, you talked about meeting someone once a week,
Yeah.
like video games or something like that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that's worked for you or that you've experienced that you'd like to give to, maybe your former self or someone in a similar situation or someone who's just feeling anxious? What other advice would you give to them or things that you wish you knew when you were in a different spot mentally?
I definitely say like I think the biggest challenge with mental health is the stigma attached to it, and that's what makes me the saddest, right? Because I don't think we should be ashamed of like mental health the same way as like you shouldn't be ashamed if you go to a physician and they draw your blood and they tell you you have vitamin C deficiency and you take a vitamin C tablet.
Yeah.
Right? If you go and you talk to someone like you have a predisposition towards depression or a predisposition towards like not liking the way your body looks or a predisposition towards something, right?
For
like
sure.
That shouldn't be like something that we have to hide and be scared of. So for like my life, I would say, like your question was like what helps or like how to give advice. So for me, I'd say so like my anxiety emerged when I was in college, and it emerged. It actually like all my anxiety came out like in anxiety attacks and like general anxiety disorder. So I actually quit college for like 3 months or like one semester because I couldn't have my stuff together and I was having like such bad panic attacks and anxiety to the point where I just like couldn't go to school. Like I couldn't literally be in a school building because I'd have panic attacks. So that was like my like experience with anxiety. And what I've learned from that is it's okay to have those feelings, and like trusting mental health professionals is really important, and being transparent and like open about your struggles is really important. So what really helped me is once that happened, I went to go see a psychiatrist, and through a few months I talked to them and kind of like learned about like anxieties in my family. I'm likely going to have these feelings for a long time. How can I use exposure therapy, and how can I how can I accept this feeling and let it go away? And what I did over a series of a couple months is it went from like really bad panic attacks towards like something I could completely manage without medication. So I got really lucky there. But it taught me the importance of like trusting people, sharing how you're feeling, not bottling it all up, and being vulnerable. And by doing those four things, like that really helped manage my anxiety. And I've had like pops of anxiety throughout my life. I'm always going to be a person that's slightly more predisposition towards anxiety. But I've gone through that a couple times now. I feel like I have good tools. And then the other thing I do that I don't think a lot of people would maybe guess, but I speak to a psychiatrist once a quarter, once every 3 to 6 months.
Yep.
So for me, I think like the way I approach my mental health is I have a really good psychiatrist that I appreciate, who's really talented and really good. She aligns to my values of like what I like and what I don't want to do, right?
Yeah.
So by finding someone really good and talking with her every 3 to 6 months of like, here's where my life is, this is what I'm doing, this is how I'm feeling, I find that's like my mental like tune-up on the car. And it doesn't mean I'm perfect and I'm always going to go up and down a little bit, but I found that that's been the biggest change in my life is like trusting the professionals, being open, and then kind of like working through it. So I'm really kind of like happy with like going through that at the end of the day, because I feel like I'm learning the tools to manage it well. for myself and my mental health. But it's still challenging, and I still feel anxiety. It's always going to be a part of me.
Yeah.
So it won't go away, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's really, insightful. Like you said, I think the vulnerability, a lot of people just aren't willing to be vulnerable or just talk about it.
Yeah.
And what they're going through, because they think people will look at them, less than, or like, oh, you're, toughen up or something, like they don't understand, or they think that it's a weakness, where really it's not a weakness. It's something that, it's almost a strength if you can talk about it, because you can help yourself and help other people.
Yeah.
Talking about it also.
Yeah, for sure, and especially, I understand everyone would process it differently, but being a boy, you're kind of like historically taught, suck it up, don't show weakness, kind of like that piece, and once you can kind of like accept it and realize like both boys and girls experience anxiety or experience depression, or some boys and girls don't like the way they look, like there's tons of things that we all experience between like our like who we are. So I think it's something we should all be more open with, and I wish it was a little more like a part of normal society to speak about these things.
For sure. Instead
of like kind of hide them, because hiding them is just makes it harder for everyone, including the people that are really struggling. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have it all figured out either. Just want to be clear.
Yeah. But it starts with just talking about it, and that's awesome that you're going to a psychiatrist and taking steps to to help yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I'd encourage like a lot of people to do that. Anyone that's had like anxiety or depression, like if you can find someone really good, it helps a lot.
Yeah,
for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How have you been able to help other people at your work, or have you seen any of ways that you could help, or have other people have helped, or businesses kind of doing anything with that? Have you seen any of that, or what is your experience with how work environments or companies?
Yeah.
Have they helped at all on that, or do you think that's something that companies could improve with?
I think it's starting to become more a part of like conversation. I think that's a really positive thing. I think in general, like speaking very high level, I've worked at a couple of different companies, and I've been working for like almost 7 years now. So I would say like now people are getting more open with like the like anxiety, depression, different types of things. And you're seeing companies like approach it in an open way, which I think is really good. And I've definitely like seen conversations in the workplace where like people are talking about their anxiety with their team, or like about things that are stressing them out, or things like that. So I feel like it's getting more and more open, which is a really good thing. For sure. And I think like one important thing that like I've always gone back to in my life is like, I think it's good to have those conversations, and at the same time it's also good to have those conversations with people that don't know you, that you don't work with, that aren't a part of your friend group as well. You need both, right? Yeah. Because like you want those conversations with the people that are close around with you, but there's also tremendous value in someone who's removed from your life, not a part of your social group of friends, that you can like tell whatever you want to.
Yeah, no biases or anything like that, for sure.
So like you need both, right? And like having it in one area, I don't believe personally is a substitute for the other. So I think it's really important to like with your close friends and with like people you trust at work to share those things with. But also I think the professional part is really valued as well. I think those two put together help. And you'll hear people share about what they've gone through, and like having those conversations with people you trust really helps. So I think that's good. And I've had like numerous conversations with people about like anxiety, and learned like I've literally learned people I didn't think had any anxiety like struggle with anxiety or may take medication for something. It's like, wow, there's a lot that you might not assume.
For sure.
Which is good, Good that not good, but you get what I mean.
Yeah. Yep. Understand. So something you said earlier that kind of relates.
Yeah.
You were saying some of the skills, whether it's financial, just financial ownership of knowing your finances and budgeting and all that. Maybe schools, high school, college isn't teaching that as well as it could, and as well as maybe how to deal with your own mental health, that maybe isn't taught as much as it should in college or high school or earlier than that. I mean, do you feel like not necessarily that they have a responsibility, but there's things that they could do better, whether it's specific classes or more resources? What could schools do better to teach things that are more essential, like finances and happiness and everything like that isn't taught, that could or maybe should be?
Yeah, that's a really hard question. I almost feel unqualified to
well,
tell schools
just your
what
opinion,
to do. But I think like the pain I see, or like the gap I see, is like they don't, like in school we had like one personal finance class. I'm sure I was the exception, right? It wasn't very good. The kids didn't really like it. It's like home economics. You learn how to iron a shirt and then you never iron the shirt when you get home, right? So I don't know if it's like, if schools can do it. I think it's a lot of things that need to happen, or like a lot of things that need to come together.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think of like the people that have responsibility, like parents definitely, right?
Yeah.
Like the families.
Yeah.
But if they haven't grown up with those skills, how are they to like teach them, right? I think if like corporations and the companies that are hiring us, if they could teach us more about 401k, how to financially plan and like have those really open conversations, I think that could be tremendous. So I just think at the end of the day, whether it's YouTube, schools, or like companies, I just think there's or people, I think there's a tremendous need to teach people how to manage money and teach people what personal finance is. Because like if you can go from a place where you're like living paycheck to paycheck and spending all your money and like have credit cards to a point where you have a couple months where if you lost your job you wouldn't need any money. Like those two people live in two different worlds, and one world's really hard and really challenging and kind of like perpetuates forever. But I think like there's a lot of empathy to hear about that, but also like how can we help people kind of move through that, and like how can we teach people, whether they're adults or kids, the right ways to, or the easy ways to manage money, easier ways to manage money.
Yeah, that's really good. I think, I was saying maybe how school or something could do that better, but just like you said, YouTube, I mean, people can Google whatever they're trying to find, information is out there.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty cool. I mean, because like, you think about it, like when you and I were in high school, like we didn't really have anything to Google about personal finance.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything. I just remember like going to like business class, and that's how I learned. Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's a lot more resources now.
Yeah, for sure.
Pretty cool.
For sure. I mean, we're definitely fortunate. I mean, you look at the course of human history, like with the internet and everything. Like, even though we're in a pandemic and lockdown and stuff, like we still have access to so much, even with the restriction, like the internet, and just how fortunate we really are.
That's true, man.
The perspective. That is really important.
Yeah.
But yeah, awesome. I have some. Let me go back to.
It's all good.
What Nikki was saying a little bit here. I talked to them over the phone, and
that's awesome. You'll have to get Nikki or AJ on sometime.
Yeah. Well, they were really interested. I'm sure they'll listen. They're excited to hear from you. But
all right. Well, tell them to subscribe and follow and like or whatever you want them to do.
Yeah, so AJ was interested in your Gold Heroes.
Your Gold Heroes.
Gold Heroes. Nice.
Yeah, I remember that. That was fun.
So, talked about real estate and everything. So this is kind of from Nikki.
Yeah.
So what has drawn you? I mean, you work at Target and everything. You have a lot of experience with supply chain.
Yeah.
She asked, what has drawn you to supply chain and logistics as a career over other areas?
Okay, so I think it's a really cool industry.
Yeah.
And like when you think about like this pandemic, right? Like all these companies are trying to figure out how do you get things and information to people the best way.
Yeah.
Right. So, I think like people delivering groceries, order online, pick up in store, like all these different ways to basically get the things you want to you. So supply chain, all it is it's like how do you get stuff from where it starts to where it needs to go?
Yeah.
So it's like how the world connects, right? What I love about supply chain, though, like more tactically, is really deep problem solving. Like, if you think about it, think of all the millions of people going to Amazon and ordering stuff. I remember reading some statistic where it's like Amazon sold like 3 packages every second during Black Friday last year. Just something like that. I forget the number, but it's just something insane. But it's like, supply chain is just getting people the things they want, and by doing that, there's so many interesting problems and so many interesting improvements that can happen over the next 10 years that I think it's a really cool industry. So I just like the solving problems, how practical it is. Like you're actually helping move stuff, helping people get what they want. It's not theory, it's like stuff is moving. So I really enjoy that. And I come from like a background in marketing. So I got a business degree with an emphasis in marketing, or major in marketing, whatever you want to call it.
Me too.
Yeah. And I had no idea what supply chain was, and then like I ended up in this industry and really liked it. So I think it's awesome. I think it's like becoming more interesting and like becoming bigger, and I enjoy working in the industry a lot.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nikki.
Yep. Good job, Nikki.
Yeah. So I mean, with that being said, how can businesses optimize? Maybe what you with some of your knowledge, how can they do a better job or just optimize to a fuller extent supply chain optimization and just optimize their business through the supply chain from your perspective?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think right now there's been so much change in supply chain. So when you think about it, you have like, you can, as I said, you can buy online, you can pick up in a store, you can get it shipped through a bunch of different carriers, you can sell through Amazon. If you're a small company, you can put your packages in Amazon, pay them a fee, right? So I think there's been, and think of how many delivery options there are for like DoorDash, Uber Eats, all this stuff. Like, there are so many little fragments in so many different areas and so many different ways to like interact with the supply chain that didn't exist 10 years ago. So I think likely what we're seeing is, I think there's been so much change that the opportunity over the next 10 years is like still keeping consumers and giving them the options, but optimizing and reducing the cost of a lot of these services. So when you think about it, like right now, in order to get groceries put on your doorstep, you probably have to come from like a slightly higher income family, right? Maybe it costs $8, and maybe the family that spends $25 a week on groceries, they can't afford like the extra piece, and that makes sense, right? So I think what the opportunity is over the next 10 years is, how do you manage down the costs and make it really efficient and really easy and reduce a ton of the costs so that all families and all groups of people can interact with all the new ways to do things. Because maybe in 10 years you don't need to live in New York City to get a package delivered really cheaply within an hour on your doorstep from like a local restaurant. Maybe that can exist way up north, way down south, like every small city, I don't know if that'll happen, but I think what's likely is, what I hope to see is, the costs of bringing things to people goes down, allows people to interact with them in new ways, and expands the people that can benefit from all the changes.
Yeah.
So I think that's
awesome.
I don't know if that will happen, but that would be my hope.
Sweet. Is there anything else? I mean, you said 10 years ago, a lot of these things weren't possible. In 10 years, is there anything else you're thinking that, hey, this I think is going to happen, or might, or I hope? Anything else?
I have no idea. I wish I could guess and be right, though, because that would be fun. I think it'll just, like, we'll continue doing new stuff and be surprised about what we do. Because if you think about it, I mean, could you have guessed, in 2008, that we would be having groceries being delivered to your house in 2008 was kind of a joke. It was like Schwann's, like frozen pizzas.
Yeah, my mom was all about that.
Yeah, and it was so expensive, and now it's like everybody's doing it. And then like that idea died, and then it came back to life, and everyone was doing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Maybe the milkman will come back, right? We'll get milk deliveries every day. I don't know.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's almost as if pandemic, in certain respects, made things be more rapid, like the advancement technology, and just people had to adapt quicker, or maybe it would have took longer.
Yeah, you see it in earnings. Like all the major retailers reported earnings last week, and all of them, huge sales online, huge sales for alternative fulfillment, like pick up in store, all that stuff, right? So it's definitely happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. It's accelerated change, for sure.
Awesome. So that's a lot of what I had. I mean, is there any? So we're obviously on a podcast right now. Is there any podcasts you listen to, or what is your?
Oh man.
Like, how long have you listened to podcasts, if you have, and what are some that maybe you listen to or really like?
Yeah. So I like Joe Rogan, so I watch that podcast from time to time. I enjoy all the different people that he gets on it. How he can
such a wide variety.
I know, it's awesome. That's what I like. I like wide variety. Listen to the minimalists a lot.
Okay.
I went through a period in my life where I considered myself a minimalist.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Now I don't own a lot of stuff. I don't call myself a minimalist. My parents still call me one though.
Yeah.
But that was a really good podcast. So those two were really good. And I'm trying to think. That's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Minimalist. So you just maybe more just being frugal or not buying stuff you don't need.
Yeah.
Is that kind of more of what you do? It's
sort of like turned into a religion, in a way.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of podcasts are kind of like religions.
Yeah.
Because it's like on Sunday or Friday they drop the podcast, and then everybody listens to the sermon for 2 hours, and there's like a guest person, right? So the minimalist is about like, how do you live simply? How do you not fall in the consumerist traps? It's like these two guys that had corporate jobs that were spending all their money and had no money because they were spending all of it while getting paid a ton of money. and they quit their jobs, traveled the world, and wrote a book, and then like created a podcast. It's really successful.
Okay. So The Minimalist, that's a book too, I imagine.
Yeah, I think it is a book. I'm pretty sure it was a book. It is a book, and I think they traveled the country doing like a book tour and doing like talks about the book.
Okay.
And recorded it. But basically, it's like, how do you not fall in consumerist traps? How do you kind of like not try to keep up with the Joneses? A lot of like the personal finance bedrock of like not needing to buy everything.
Yeah.
Style. How do you be happy with what you have? Things like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's probably, I think that'd be good, like, just getting back to people's anxieties or mental health, like, to be not like, oh, my neighbor Tim or Jill has a new Tesla or whatever, you know, I needed this or that.
Yeah.
Like, that would be healthy for people's, you know, anxiety and other conditions.
Yeah, if you have, for sure, I think there's a lot of research and like good statistics around if you can like save money and if you don't live paycheck to paycheck, like you reduce a lot of your negative feelings, whatever they are, you know. So I think personal finance and mental health are intertwined.
Yeah.
Very closely, right? If you're like, paycheck to paycheck and like in a lot of debt, it's a ton of stress you're feeling every day.
Yeah, for sure.
Because like if you suddenly stopped working, like what happens when you have 4 kids, 3 kids, when you have a wife, when you have a dog, I don't know, right? Like it's a lot of weight for someone to carry for years.
Yeah, or just like you were saying with like a 20-year plan that maybe you have, like it's hard to think about a 20-year plan when you're trying to think of what I need to do this week and the bills I need to pay and all that type of thing.
Then you wake up in 20 years and you're like, oh my gosh. And that's something that scares me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can see why. For sure. Yeah, AJ said you got a new dog?
I got a new dog, Myra, Greyhound. She's pretty awesome.
Aren't those racing dogs?
Yeah, she's really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, she can go, I think, like 30 miles per hour, and I'm not exaggerating.
That's crazy.
Yeah, she's insanely fast. It's like a cheetah that sleeps all day, and like her twitch reflexes of like jumping up, and like you can hear her from like a mile away if she's running in the house. She's like thump, 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 thump. It's crazy. She's a dog though. She's awesome. She's at home right now, probably missing me.
Yeah. Hey, that's a good thing about people working remote is the dogs are enjoying life.
I know. I'll have her listen to this podcast sometime when I'm gone. She can.
You get to get some insights.
Yeah. It's awesome.
For sure. Well, that's all the questions that I had written down that AJ and Nikki wanted to ask, but one more kind of touched on it.
Yeah.
Is there any other, any advice you would give to like 18-year-old Mitch, before you were going to college, or did you kind of know what you were going to do, or had that 20-year plan set, or did you figure it out on the way, or how would you, just what advice would you give to 18-year-old Mitch?
Yeah. Oh man, that's a really long time ago. So I got really lucky in that like I learned personal finance, I learned saving through like really good mentors and really good people that taught me these things.
Well, who are some other mentors other than your mom when you were younger that have really helped you?
Yeah, so one of them is Nick, who when I was in college, he really was a mentor that like taught me how to like manage money and like run a business and things like that.
Okay.
He's basically the CEO at a company in downtown Minneapolis, and he also has a side business that he manages. So he's been a really good mentor that's kind of like taught me the skills, and I could kind of like emulate after.
Okay.
And then one really interesting thing, so I said the formative like experience I had of like how do I create a budget, how do I create planning, how do I understand how to manage money is, I graduated college with I think like $24,000 in debt. So I paid for I went for college for 5 years, and most of it got paid for by myself or my parents, and then I had about $24K left. So when I did that, I met on the first day of working at Target, one of my friends, Parth, and he showed me the budget he had. And he showed me what percent of his money he was saving, and how that would grow. And from that, I basically went off the financial deep end of like, I have $24,000. I need to pay this off as soon as possible, get out of debt, and never get in debt again.
Interest.
No interest. Exactly. So I basically, through that tool, that was the rabbit hole where I learned how to like plan money. I eventually paid off all my debt and saved money, and then I created all these other things. But that was the starting point, because I realized like, if I used my money smartly, I could then have a plan. But before then, I had no plan, and I had no like really good accounting. I had no really good tracking of my money. I was just spending, and I look back and I blew a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
Like I didn't save any money from all the jobs I had from 16 to 22. That's like 6 years of like savings that you could have. But anyways, that was my learning experience for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's how it all started.
Are you still in touch with Nick and
Yeah, Nick and Perth, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. I'll give him a link to this.
Awesome. But yeah, I mean, that wraps up my questions. Is there anything else that's been in your mind, or just things that we didn't touch?
This has been really fun. I appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, well, thank you for
professional setup. This is awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
no
really
problem.
appreciate you coming down. I'm always looking forward to talking to you and just getting your insight on a lot of things.
Yeah,
really
maybe
awesome.
I'll come back and
maybe in 1 year.
Yeah.
Part 2.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be awesome. See what changes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, thank you, and hopefully no pandemic.
Yeah, I know. That would be awesome.
For sure. Thanks,
This has been
Mitch.
fun. Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, awesome.